That's enough bugs. Happy New Year, everyone! Hello, and we're back at it. 2018 is here. Yay, it's another year. Whoopee, hooray, it's 2018. And let's kick things off with a really depressing-ass movie, just like I imagined. Hello there, CriterioNate here, number 426, Ang Lee's The Ice Storm. 1997, 113 minutes, colors there, blah, 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 blah. Holy heck. So this is the second, only the second Ang Lee movie I've seen. Obviously he's directed a lot of big name movies. You know, he's made, big Academy Award movies, like in recent years. Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, Brokeback Mountain, Billy Lyle's Long Halftime Walk, or whatever it is, A Life of Pi, but this was still when he was still trying to get his foot in the, Hollywood's door and all that, But yeah, the only other movie I'd seen by him was the Wedding Banquet, or whatever it was. I forget the name of it. Yeah, The Wedding something or other. Yeah, The Wedding Banquet, I think. And I had seen it under the impression that the plot was entirely different from what I imagined it was. And when I found out what it was about, I was like, oh, okay, well, still interesting. It was definitely a little more confusing. I was a little confused. But, yeah, so that's my only little personal taste with Ang Lee outside of this movie. So yeah, outside of that, I know the movies he's done, but I've never seen them. So, and the only other Ang Lee movie we have in the Criterion Collection right now was his next movie, Ride with the Devil, which is number 514. So we'll get to that one probably a year from now, probably at this rate. But yeah, The Ice Storm. It's not completely depressing, but it is a dark ass movie. It's definitely I thought it might have been a little more cheerful, and there's some humor in it, but it's that kind of humor that doesn't really. There are some funny bits. There are some very, very funny bits in this movie. But overall, it is a drama. It is a more drama than comedy. So, yeah, I think the drama aspects of it kind of take over the funnier moments. So that's why I say it's a dark movie. To say nothing, the colors are dark because it's set in the winter and there's a lot of ice and coldness and all that. So yeah, it's set in New Haven, Connecticut, or New Haven, or New Cavern, Connecticut, or whatever the heck this name. What's the name of this place? New something. It's in Connecticut, and New Canaan, Connecticut. It's set in 1973, and it's about these two families who are neighbors with each other, and just like how they kind of interact with each other, and just like everything that was going on in 1973, and just how these two families are basically just kind of struggling to figure out, what's going on in their own lives, while exploring each other's lives and all that. Basically, and the trippy thing, there's a lot of stars in this movie, a lot of upcoming stars, but also a lot of well-established stars. Just to give you the basic plot line, stars Kevin Kline as Ben Hood, and his wife Elena, played by Joan Allen, and their two kids, Paul Hood, played by Tobey Maguire, and Wendy, played by Christina Ricci. And their neighbors are the Carvers. Jim Carver, played by Jamie Sheridan, Janie Carver, played by Sigourney Weaver, and their two sons, Mikey, played by Elijah Wood, and Sandy, played by Adam Hahn Bird. And they, so basically, Ben, so just to get you all the juicy details, Ben is having an affair with Janie. Elena is contemplating, I guess at one point, having an affair with the Reverend, because she runs into him at a book sale, and their son Paul is away for school, and he falls in love with a fellow classmate, Libetz Casey, who's played by Katie Holmes, and his classmate Francis Davenport the Fourth, played by David Krumholtz, likes Katie too. Libetz. It's easier to say Katie Holmes than Libetz Casey, but Libetz. What kind of name is Libetz? Yeah. Wendy is when Christina Ricci plays the same character she seems to be playing in all the movies she's in. Someone who has sex, or thinks or talks a lot about sex in her movies. Seems like Christina Ricci does that in almost all the movies, at least I've seen her. So yeah, Wendy is experimenting with her sexuality. Makes out with she makes out with Mikey, and at one point, Sandy has a huge crush on her. And toward the end of the movie, they get in bed together, and she tries to seduce him, but they end up getting drunk on vodka and passing out in bed together naked. And yeah, so yeah, Janie sleeps with Ben just for the sex. She's sleeping with other guys, but Ben really thinks that they have something special. And he's really hurt when he finds out that they don't. And eventually Elena finds out and gets really upset about this, understandably. And they end up getting invited to a party, and they go upset. And they're a little flustered when they find out it's a key party. And for those of you who don't know what a key party is something where is a party where at the beginning of the party, it's for couples, and couples come and they drop their keys into a bowl, and at the end of the night, they pick up, the keys are scrambled, and they have to pick up a random set of keys, or just they pick a set of keys, and whoever owns the keys, they have to go home with the opposite sex partner of the person who they pick the keys for. And so so obviously they're like really upset by this, and Allison Janney's in it. She kind of hosts it, plays Dot Holliford is her name. And so throughout the movie, there's this big tension between Ben and Elena, and Jim has no clue until when they do the key picking scene. Janie picks the keys, and she doesn't pick Ben's, and so she goes off with some young guy, and Ben's really drunk, and he ends up stumbles up and protests, and he falls over and hits his head, and it isn't till then when Jim realizes that he wanted to be with Janie, and he realizes, all this was going over. So at the end of the night, Ben is passed out in the bathroom, and Elena and Jim are alone, and they figure, well, we might as well. And so they get in the car and drive off, and they try to have sex, and they realize it's Jim's not gonna do it. So they just head back to the house and try to warm up. What else can I tell you about this movie? One of the funnier scenes is I like the relationship between Paul and Wendy. They call each other Charles on the phone, and Wendy's really watching Nixon, and he's a liar and all that, and there's a lot of political turmoil bubbling under the movie. But yeah, the whole idea of the ice storm comes in toward the end of the movie, when they get caught in an ice storm. There's actually a literal ice storm happening that traps all the characters together in different situations. Obviously Wendy and Sandy are trapped in bed together. Janie ends up going off with the young guy, but she comes home and she's just basically lays down and just cries in the fetal position, or just is very sad. Mikey has probably the worst outcome of it all. He ends up going out to explore the storm, and he walks around and ends up walking, and at one point he ends up sliding down this hill, the ice on his back, and he sits down on a guardrail, on a train rail, and a broken power line falls down onto the guardrail and electrocutes him, and he dies. And his body just falls, and he continues to slide down. It isn't until later when Jim sobers up and or Ben sobers up and starts to drive home, that he finds his body, finds the Mikey's body, and they bring it to the Carvers, and Jim has a breakdown, and afterwards the Hoods go to pick up Paul from school. Paul had been at a party. Paul had been over at Libet's house, and she had invited Francis over as well. And so the three of them all got high. Actually, I don't think Paul actually partaked, or he might have gotten a little drunk. But at one point, they're talking. He and Libet's are talking, and she passes out, and her head falls in his crotch. And it's probably one of the funniest scenes. And in a deleted scene, Paul calls Wendy to ask for her advice. And that was probably one of the funnier scenes, just because the awkwardness of it all. And it's Tobey Maguire too. I know him as Spider-Man. It's funny to see all these characters, these people as other people. Especially if they're the younger characters. Tobey Maguire, I know him as Spider-Man. Christina Ricci, I know her as Wednesday Addams, as well as she was in Buffalo '66, which is a movie that's a movie that should be in the Criterion Collection. Elijah Wood, Bilbo Baggins. So again, it's a trip to see Allison Janney, Mom from Mom. And Katie Holmes, Tom Cruise's wife or whatever, so all of that, all of these younger characters playing, knowing them, I know them more for what they're doing, in later years. So anyway, the movie ends with them picking up Paul, and Ben just finally breaks down in the car after picking up Paul, and that's how the movie ends. So I kind of like this movie. I thought it was it was an interesting look at the 70s. I think that there have been better movies made about the 70s. I mean, more entertaining movies, more interesting movies. I thought it was an interesting movie, honestly. To be completely fair, I thought it was a very interesting look at social status and sexuality, and just like how people reacted to certain things, how it was tackled back in '73, which seemed to be like this really pivotal period anyway. This year, I mean, personally for me, musically, it was one of those years. Pink Floyd's The Dark Side of the Moon came out, and the soundtrack is fantastic too. They used Frank Zappa's Dirty Love, which I'm like, whoa, Frank Zappa, really? I didn't know they could get the rights to Frank Zappa's music. Although I know in a later movie we'll see Y Tu Mama Tambien, they use Frank Zappa's Watermelon and Easter Hay, which I know was, I think Cuarón pulled teeth to get that song in his movie. But we'll get to that well into the future. So anyway, Ang Lee, it's an interesting movie. Definitely a lot darker than The Wedding Banquet. And I think Ride Like the Devil is another dark movie, but it's sort of a Western movie too. So I think it's interesting. I think it was a Chinese director making a fully American movie. An interesting idea. And I've never read the book. Rick Moody. It's based on a book by Rick Moody. And I've never read the book, but apparently I've read that the book was supposed to be is a lot funnier than the movie, and there's a lot of the book that's not in the movie, and vice versa, and blah blah blah. So I'm intrigued. I might check out the book. It sounds interesting enough. And that's all I have to say. The Ice Storm. What do we give this? Oh gosh. I thought there were some weird bits about the movie. I thought it was good, but there was bits about it that I just thought didn't work as well as I thought they could have. For that, I'm going to give this an A-. It's a great movie, and I would recommend it especially if Tobey Maguire is great, Christina Ricci's great, all the actors. Sigourney Weaver's fantastic. But there's something about it that just, I don't know, I can't quite put my finger on it, and I wish I knew what it was. That way I could explain it to you guys better, but it's not the most perfect movie, you know. So that's why I'm giving it an A-. Still a good movie. I would just check it out. I don't think I'm going to pick it up, but it's worth another watch. I'll watch it, probably check it out in future years. So yeah, Ice Storm, A-. Supplements. The disc 1 has a trailer. Disc 2 has a new documentary featuring new interviews with Kevin Kline, Sigourney Weaver, Joan Allen, Tobey Maguire, Christina Ricci, Elijah Wood, all talking about the making of the movie, the scenes they recollect, how they recall, you know, making the movie with Ang Lee, and how, I guess, in the beginning of the movies, Ang Lee would do this, like, you know, this good luck ceremony, and they were really, I guess Sigourney Weaver in particular was really taken aback by it and really interested by it all. There's an interview with Rick Moody talking about his, you know, how they adapted his work. There's also a half hour, 30 minutes of footage from this event from the New York Museum of the Moving Image, starring with Ang Lee and what's his name, James Shamus, who was his producer screenwriter, who worked with Ang Lee on a number of his movies. So it's just kind of retrospective. They talk about a lot of movies, mostly Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, but there's a bit about the Ice Storm as well. There's also new documentaries about with the cinematographers, production designers, talking about the look of the Ice Storm, and also almost 7 minutes of deleted scenes as well, including the scene I mentioned with where Paul calls Wendy on the phone and asks him what he should do about Hibbits or Kibitz, or what is her name? Libbits. So yeah, Ice Storm, A-. Not a bad movie, but I think Ang Lee's got a better one. Possibly might have a better one than this, so we'll keep our eyes open rather. So we're back. It's 2018. And that's it for today. Tomorrow, Death of a Cyclist. And that may be the last one we do for a while, at least for a week. I've got some family coming up. And speaking of family, I mentioned before, we will be doing, my brother Josh and I will be reviewing Chungking Express. We're still torn as to whether or not we're actually going to upload it, like, out of plate. We were thinking, like, I'm thinking I'm going to go ahead and upload it because it's going to be a while before we see another review until after Death of a Cyclist, because I've just got some stuff coming up and I won't have time to do reviews until for about a week until they leave, because I want to spend time with them. However, I do have the next couple of movies with us. I can't, just don't like her. Got the next couple of movies. Got a little Mal in the form of The Lovers and the Fire Within. And Blast of Silence is on its way. I thought it would be coming in today, but to no avail. But yeah, so it should be here hopefully tomorrow. I would like to try and get that one done. I'm going to try and get that one done while they're here, although I don't know. I'll definitely be doing it next week, or the week, probably next Thursday. We'll get to that one, and then I'll try to find time for The Lovers and The Fire Within. But again, this whole period is kind of a little iffy. I may end up marathoning them all in one day, although again I don't know because I work Thursdays now. So right now my best days are Sundays, Mondays, and Tuesdays for reviews. And yeah, so just right now because of my family coming up, it's a little iffy. So anyway. Yeah. So anyway, but speaking of the Eclipser, we've got some Eclipser as well. So hopefully sometime after the other ones, we've got the Who Are You, Polly Magoo, the Model Couple, Mr. Freedom, the William Klein set is floating around here too. So anyway, that's it for so that's the schedule. So so tomorrow, Death of a Cyclist, and then Chungking Express sometime, and you'll either see it in order or sometime. Eventually, we'll figure it out. So anyway, that's it for me. Thank you for watching. Don't have sex with a Richard Nixon mask on. And don't go out in the ice storm. Don't go out in an ice storm. Here in California, I've seen like there's ice on the windshield, but that's the closest you'll get to an ice storm in this friggin' country, in this friggin' state. So yeah. So if you're in Connecticut, watch out. And don't go to key parties. Don't go to key parties. Don't trust Nixon because he's a crook. And don't sit on guardrails. And don't fall and don't pass out in Tobey Maguire's crotch. So yeah. So anyway, that's it for me. Thank you for watching, and we will see you all tomorrow for Death of a Cyclist. And until then, goodbye.